It's been quite a nutty week. Not only did we have Fed Week, where Jerome Powell was going to have the press conference after their two-day meeting, but on top of that, the National Association of Realtors dropped a bombshell on all of us regarding a settlement that they reached from that lawsuit that's been going on for quite some time. So starting the week, on Monday, that's when they officially announced the settlement agreement. The settlement included a $418 million payout. They're also removing and eliminating the ability for the seller's side agent set the commission/compensation to the buyer's agent. The way it used to work is the seller and the listing agent would negotiate a commission fee up front. And it could be anywhere between even 2 to 6%, but let's say they agreed upon 5% as an example. 2.5% would be paid to the listing agent who's providing services to the sellers, but the other 2.5% would actually be given to the buyer's side agent for bringing that buyer to that transaction. So this is one of the biggest changes we've ever seen in the history of the real estate market in the United States at the very least. So I'll be posting a separate video going into more details about that later on. But moving on to Fed Week. Now the Feds decided to keep rates unchanged, which all the markets were expecting anyway. But we were closely monitoring exactly how the press conference was going to go, because remember last year when the rates corrected up to 8%, that happened due to the Fed's tone. So the tone that he sets at that press conference was going to be very crucial in terms of figuring out where the rates might go in the near term. Jerome Powell took a very dovish stance. He actually was quite lenient, reiterated the fact that they still plan to cut rates 3 times this year, which was actually very nice to hear. We were worried that he was going to try to beat around the bush again, but he did actually reiterate that. He also went out of his way to comment the fact that strong job growth will not hinder their decision to cut rates in 2024, which was again great news because there's been a lot of talks about how the BLS jobs report is extremely flawed to say the least. Now initially in the beginning of the year / end of last year, the markets were pricing in about a 90% chance that the Feds are going to begin cutting rates in June. Unfortunately, of course, that number has definitely gone down with the hotter than expected inflation reports that's been coming out recently, and that number's dropped to about 60%. With all that said, it could have gone way worse, so I'm happy with the way things settled down, and that actually helped the mortgage rates go down a little bit too. And lastly, I wanted to note that the unemployment numbers actually rose to 3.9%. And mind you, this is actually the highest level we've seen in the past couple of years. So we do want to keep an eye out on unemployment, because the higher unemployment gets, that's typically an indication that we may be entering a recession. And I know it's strange for me to talk about that so positively, but I mean, of course, it's bad news, but mortgage rates are weird and they like bad news. Higher unemployment is higher chances of a recession. Mortgage rates love recessions. The idea or the logic behind that is the fact that during a recession and with unemployment numbers on the rise, the Feds are kind of forced to have to cut rates a little bit more aggressively, which could lead to lower rates quicker. That's all for this week. Mortgage rates are ending the week, thankfully under 7% again for the national 30-year fixed average.